Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the Carnival Cat. I'm recording this class for my students at the San Rafael Public Library, but it's such a fun class I wanted to share it with you as well. This is a really great class that's going to share with you some of the tangles that are going on in the Inktober Tangle series that is on Facebook. We'll be learning how to do several different tangles from that series, so I'm really excited to bring this to you. Things that you're going to need for class are your favorite Tangle pen. I happen to have my Pigma pen, but you can use your Micron pen. I also have a pit pen for when we do puddling inside of the cat. Puddling just means we're laying down a lot of ink in one area, and this particular cat has a lot of black in it, so you'll need to have either your Micron brush pen, a Micron Identa pen, or the Faber-Castell pen. If you don't have any of those, a good old Sharpie will get you out of a pinch. You'll just use the thick side of the Sharpie. I also happen to have my mechanical pencil in my hand here. Now, you can use any regular graphite pencil to build your string with us today. And then finally, you know me, I'm a Prismacolor pencil girl. So if you have a color pencil set, grab it because we're going to be doing a lot of color today. Now you know that I have my own tiles at the Tangled Yogi shop. I will be working on the Genesis tile today, and if you want to check out that tile, it's at tangledyogi.com and just go into the shop and check it out. I have done the class on the rustic tile, which is also at tangledyogi.com, but it's a nice tan paper, and you'll see the difference in the way that the colors present themselves on the page. All right, well that's it. Let's get ready to do the Carnival Cat. Okay, so we're going to get started here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my pencil. You can see I've got my mechanical pencil here, and I'm going to go ahead and start by creating our dots in our four corners. So this is just the regular old-fashioned Zentangle way, and I'm going to play connect the dots just by bringing those lines together. Making a nice narrow border for this composition here. And if there's a little wobble in your line, that's okay. Remember, we are in this to enjoy ourselves, not to judge ourselves, so just allow yourself to be exactly who you are today. Now you can see that I've got my lines all set up and I'm ready to rock and roll. Now if you need a moment to finish up, go ahead and do so, and then we are going to start to build our cat because the cat is part of our string for the class. Alright, so I've turned my tile so that it looks like a diamond on my desk here, and you can see that I'm going to start to just divide the space with a very, very light line. And I'm just going right through the center, and you can see there's a little wobble in my line. That's just fine. This is just going to help us to guide ourselves to putting in the cat here. Now, the cat head is going to be up towards the top, but I know for myself that when I'm working, it just works better for me to work horizontally. So I'm going to actually take my piece and put it on its side here, and you're going to see me make two dots that are a little bit away from my border here. And I'm not too close to the top either. So you can see that I'm coming down and creating these two dots. And I would say that I'm about 3/4 of an inch away from the corner on each side. I'm going to go ahead and take that and turn it into a nice kind of petal shape, if you will, but it's a really kind of large petal shape. Okay, so you want to make sure that you've got a good large petal shape so that when you turn it, it looks like it could be part of that cat there. Now on the top of those petals, or that big petal that I just did, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make two triangles that are going to have a little bit of a curve to them. So there's one, and then here comes the other one. So there's my cat head right there. Now, as I zoom out here, I'm going to start to build the cat body here. And what that's going to look like is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to make a nice long line, but you'll notice that I'm staying really close to the center line until about the halfway mark, and then I start to bow out a little bit, and I'm just going to drop in and stop. I'm going to go ahead to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm auraing this line right here, and I'm going to bow out at the same spot, and then I'm going to stop. Now that feels a little narrow to me, so I have the option to make him a little bit wider, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now what I love about this string is that now you've got these two spaces in which to work on, which is really lovely. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to build the tail of the cat. And what this is going to look like is, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit over here. I'm going to come up from this corner so you can see that I'm right down here in this corner of the cat here. And I'm going to jump up and out, and you'll notice that I'm going to start to break away right at the curve here. So you can see that I started to break away at the curve, and all I'm going to do is the tangle muka, which is a really fun just curved tangle right here. You can see that I just stopped at the arc, and now I'm going to drop back and in, and that is muka right there. I'm going to go ahead and aura my muka. I'm still working with my pencil here. Taking your time when you aura. You know, aura lines always give us away. If we're rushing, they show up in our tangles. And then I'm going to go ahead and come down. So there you can see is the tail of the cat. So that when I zoom out, look at how easy peasy that was. Just really fun, and it just has a good personality. It's a really great little tangle and a great way to divide the space. So in the next few moments, we are going to work on filling up the cat here. So take a moment to finish up yours and we'll be right back. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start to fill in the cat here. And I want to talk about the materials that I'm going to be using for this. Now, I happen to have one of my favorite pens handy. This is the Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and it has a really great brush head. It's great for filling in large swaths of space. If you don't have one of these, the Micron brush pen is a good pen. You could use the Micron oh goodness, I can't remember the name of it, but it has the graphic, the Micron graphic. That's a great one as well. Now, if you're at home and you just don't have those things, a good old Sharpie, that'll do it. It'll fill up the space quite nicely. So the only reason why I don't always talk about using a Sharpie is because they have a scent to them that sometimes makes people a little bit ill. So I'm going to take my brush pen here, and I'm going to start to puddle in the area. Now, for those of you who really struggle with puddling, and puddling means you're just going to be laying down ink, you can actually go ahead and overdraw with your favorite Tangle pen. I've got one of my favorites in my hand right here, and you can see that I'm just going ahead and doing my outline. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side here, taking my time. You'll notice that I'm taking my time with this. Letting that drop down. And then I'll come over and I will do the muka. Taking my time with muka. And then aura-ing muka. So you can see that I'm going to just come right up from the bottom, come around, and And there's my muka tail. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to start by just puddling in. So puddling means just laying down the ink. So when I puddle my ink, I always move in a circular motion. So you can see that my pen is moving in a circular motion. And the reason for that is that I want to get an even distribution of the ink. And I'm hardly touching the page. And even if you're working with the Sharpie, just barely touch the page with your pen and you'll notice that the ink will flow a lot more easily for you. You can see that I'm just turning my page and letting that fill in. And isn't that such a cool pen? It's a great pen. And then I'll start to dip up into the ears. Now because this pen has such a nice fine tip, if I just go very lightly, I can just get right up in there and I don't have to switch my pen. Getting in there. And then I'll just start to work my way down the body. So you're just going to see me start to fill in the spaces. Just going right down the center. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up mine. Now before I go, I do want to talk about the tail. So I'm only going to do the inside of the tail. I'm not going to do the aura. So you can see that I'm just getting in there nice and lightly. And then I'll come down and finish out the tail. You can see I'm really trying to take my time. And if I need to clean up any lines, the great thing is I've got a black pen handy, so I can always clean up those lines if I need to. Okay, so go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to start tangling. Okay, so for our first tangle that we're going to do today, we're kind of do a little bit of a variation on this tangle. I have a very dear friend, her name is Heidi Kay, and she is my sister in all things colorful in the Zentangle world, and she came up with a really great tangle. This is called Spines, and it's a wonderful tangle, and it's by Heidi Kay, and you can find her at hktangler.com. She's wonderful. And so what we're going to do, I'm just going to show you a demo of it, but we're going to do a very, very simplified version of it. So Spines usually starts out with part of a printemps or half of a curlicue, however you like to put it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just by putting a little bit of a spine there, a spine here, and a spine over here. Now I'm just going to keep going with my little printemps here, and you'll see that I'm going to have to holly-baw around those spines. Now I'm going to pause right here, and I'm going to go right next to this spine, and I'm going to do a bigger spine. I'm going to turn my page, and I'm going to go to the next one. You'll notice that I always go to the right of my spine here. And I'm going to turn it again. So now I'm back to center here, and I'm just going to keep on going with that printemps. So you're going to just see me keep on rolling, arcing, and going around. And I'm trying to keep my arcs at about the same size and width. It can be a little tricky. Now, once I've gone around again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some more spines. So you're going to see me come over and do it again. This one's going to fall off the page just because I'm on the edge of my paper. And then I'll come back up and I'll close it off just right here for now. So you can see that it's a really fun tangle, and I should probably put another spine over here. But It's just a really fun idea. It's a fun concept. However, what we're going to do today is we're going to build off of a gemstone and do our spines a little bit differently, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But definitely check out spines. So I'm going to come in, and right here on the side of where my little cat is, I'm going to create like a half circle right here. So it's going to look like this. I'm just going to come here and create a half circle. And I should be doing this with my my pen, so I think I'm just going to switch right over and pick up my micron pen here, or my Tangle pen. So I'm going to come in and create an arc, and now I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of an aura underneath it. Now we're going to put a gemstone in here in a few minutes, but we'll come back to that. So I'm going to go right in here in this area, and I'm going to do a nice arc in here. And what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in, make an arc, and now I'm going to put in a spine. So I'm going to go ahead and make a nice large triangle. I would say that this triangle is about a ½ an inch on each side there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another arc. And then I'll do another spine right here. And you can see it's a little bit bigger, and because this is starting to get bigger, I'm going to put a little spine over here, but he's going to fall right off the page. I'm going to do another arc, and watch, it's going to look like it's intersecting through here and over here. Now I can do another spine, and I can come over here and do another spine. Isn't that fun? It's such a pretty way to do a mandala. I just love that. And I think that that's going to do it for this side in here, because we have other things that we want to put in here. So that tangle of spines, really, really fun. And go ahead and finish yours up, and we're going to leave a little bit of space in here because we're going to build off of the side of the cat. All right, so many of you might know that October is actually Inktober in the creative world, and especially in the Zentangle community, we are doing Inktober with tangles. And so what I'm going to do, the next tangle is called Harari, and it's by Midori Furuhashi. I think I'm pronouncing that correct. I hope so. And what this looks like is it's merely a really beautiful petal, so I'm just going to do a U shape right here. And then you can go ahead and do some scalloping at the top. So I'm just going to do a couple of scallops on each side. Now inside of the flower, we're going to do these kind of lipped parts of the petal that look like the petal is curving in on itself, which is really beautiful. Now we can take these little indentations down in here and drop them down towards the bottom of the petal in here and over here. Now you could leave it just like that, or you could do some really soft auras going the opposite direction to give this a really interesting feel. And that really makes it kind of fun. And if you really wanted to go hog wild with it, you could put some tipple down the center of your harari, which is always fun too. So it's a really fun way to play with this tangle. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our cat here. And you're going to see me pull the same stunt again. I'm going to do a little arc right in here, and we're going to have another gemstone. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to arc out, and I'm going to let it touch right onto that nice spine. Now if you don't have a spine right there, you can just let it drop right into one of your auras on spine, and it'll be just fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and do another arc right in here. And that's going to be for my gemstone. And you're going to see that I'm going to turn my piece on its side just a little bit, and I'm going to create that U shape. You'll notice that that U shape touched the stone here, that line where I've got the aura. Now I'm going to do another one right here. And what's going to happen is that part of the petal is going to go behind the cat. I'll come over here and I'll do another one. And you can see that it's going to kind of get obscured by my spines. And that's okay with me. I love the idea of layering tangles. It looks so neat. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to do some scalloping on these. So I'm going to come in and do 1, 2, 3 and touch. 1, 2 over here and touch. Okay? I'll create that little lip that makes it look like it's curling in on itself. And I'll do the other one right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and come in, make a little scallop, 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2 right over here. Do that little lip that goes in. And I'll do another one over here. So I'm thinking about where that cat is and just trying to make it as easy as possible for myself. Coming in and over, and I'm just going to pretend that I'm right over there, so you can see that I just kind of made that look like it was right there. Now I could even continue on and just pretend that I'm layering these, and then that way it looks like it's continuous. You can see that that kind of looks like it just keeps going behind the spines, and I love to layer things like that. I think it's really fun. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to bring those lines down right in towards the bottom here. And just for the sake of today, I don't think I'm going to add any of my tipple in there. I think I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to come over here and do the same. You can see I'm just carrying those in, and I'll go over to this area right in here and do the same. Now if you want to make those lines that go away from the piece, you can. So you can come in right here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and let those go downward. So it's almost like they're perpendicular to the first ones that you just did. I'm going to come over here and do the same. And I know that this looks really busy right now, but once we start adding in our shading and our color, you'll notice that it goes a long way adding in those little lines. So you can see that's really, really fun. So that's Harari, really fun tangle, and I hope you enjoyed it. So we're going to move on to our next tangle. Go ahead and finish up the one that you've got, and we'll get started in a minute. Okay, so we're going to continue on with another tangle from Inktober here, and this is called Yumemi, and this is by Shea Naratomi. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And what we're going to do, and this is a really fun tangle, you guys know that I love doing tipple for filler, but this one is just a wonderful filler. So all it is it's a series of teardrops or flux. So you can see there's a flux right there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and build off of it. And generally there are 5 of them in this tangle, so I'm going to do my best to squeeze in 5. Sometimes you get 5, sometimes you get 4, sometimes you get 6, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little V-like shape right at the top of each of these petals in here. So you can see that it's just a little V-like shape right in here. Now she puddles them in. You don't have to, but you can, and for the sake of this I'm going to. And then what she did was she called it kissing. So she starts another one where it is touching the same tangle. So I'm just going to come up here into the corner here and do another flux and let it touch, or as she called it, kissing. Really trying to do 5. And then once again, coming in with the V. Inktober's been great for me because I am not one of those tanglers that remembers the names of everything, and sometimes I even forget tangles that I've done. So this just puts more tangles in my repertoire, which I love. Now, another thing that Shay did was she loved to fill the space with tipple. So you know that's why I love this tangle so much, was because in the spaces where the kisses are, she puts a little tipple, and I just thought that was really fun. So we're going to go into our piece here, and you can see I've got a nice little space over here, and we'll be adding some more of this tangle later on over here. Okay, so I'm going to come into this corner, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just go ahead and ink in my border on that side to hold a little bit of the tangle into the border, but not too much. So you can just see I just did the bottom in here to guide myself. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start just by coming into this nice little space. Now remember, if you don't have a ton of space in here, don't worry about it. You can put this in another part of the tangle, so not to worry. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to start by creating those little flux like shapes. I'm taking my time because I'm really trying to do 5. Now once I have that, I'll go ahead and I'll do my V's. And then I'm going to start to do the kissing thing. Now remember, I didn't add my border line in here. I only left it at the bottom. So if I fall out of the tangle, that's just going to make this more interesting. So I'm going to come up and over, and I'm going to go behind this tangle over here and come over here. I'm going to go out of the border, and then I'm going to come over here and underlap. So you can see how much fun you can have with this tangle. Just really trying to get 5 in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the V's into my corners. Now this one I can't put the V in because it's behind. So I'll go ahead and I'll start to look at it and see, okay, I'm going to puddle. So I'm going to puddle in my V's. And come over here and puddle my V's. Now I think I can probably squeeze one more in there, and I'm going to really try for it. I'm going to make this guy a little bit smaller. So he's got a little flux, and then this flux is going to go behind and over. And then I'll come over here and get that in. So I'll get my little V's in. Now what I love about this is now when I go ahead to do my border on this side, my border will be interrupted by those tangles. I have to lift up, come out the other side, come out the other side, and I love that. There's something very playful about an interrupted border. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to add in some tipple in here just because she did it and I want to do it too. I'm going to make some of my tipple bigger and smaller. Just having fun, playing around with it. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you can really see what I'm up to. Super fun. And I could even go in here and add some in here, or if you wanted to, you could do a teensy weensy little one of the yumemis if you wanted to. Or yeah, yumemi. I have trouble with that one. I'm trying. So I'm just going to fill this up. And then we'll do puddling a little bit later on this. I'm not going to have us do too much puddling right now. Okay? So that when I zoom out, look at how fun that is. Isn't that really fun? Love that tangle. So go ahead and finish yours up, and then we're going to start over on the other side. We're going to bring some of this tangle over to the other side, but in a little bit. All right, so for this next one, we're going to do a really fun tangle. And this one's actually by Headquarters. It's by Rick and Maria. And so we're going to do moon pie, and I'm going to write this down. Such a fun tangle, and this is a great filler as well. You can use this in a lot of spaces, and for those of you who have done henna drum with me before, this kind of has a feeling of henna drum in it that I really enjoy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a V, just like so, and then I'm going to do an arc inside of the V, nice and low. Then I'll do another arc right in here. Now, above that second arc, I'm going to go ahead and throw in some tipple. You might call it orbs. And then over the top of the tipple, I'm going over and aura-ing it like so. Now, if you wanted to, you could add petals behind that. You could go hog wild with it. Another thing that Rick and Maria do that's really quite lovely is that they add a little bit of dimension down at the bottom, which gives it a really fun flair. Okay. Now for our particular piece, I'm kind of going gemstone crazy, so we're going to do some gemstones in the bottom of ours. Okay. So what this is going to look like is you can see that I've got this really nice area right where the tail is. Now I am going to go ahead and just ink in the side of my border where the tail is. So you can see that I just inked in that area. I did not ink in up here. I'm leaving that alone for now. So I'm going to create moon pie right here in this corner. So you're going to see me go ahead and do an arc with an aura. And then I'm going to do another arc a little bit higher up with an aura. And then you're going to see me go ahead and do the tipple. And then I'll very, very gently aura the top of my tipple. Now what I love about this is that you can make it look like a flower. So I'm just going to come in right off the side here and create these petal-like shapes that are just going to drop down over the top. Now look, I'm going to get close to the cat. I have to lift up and come down, and now it looks like it's a flower, which is really fun. So let's go ahead and do that again, because I've got this really nice area here that has a V-like shape that's going to lend itself really well to moon pie. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go ahead and arc. So I'm going to do an arc right here. And then I'm going to do a nice little arc over the top of it. I'll come in and I'll do another one. And then I'm going to go ahead and do some tipple. And then I'm going to go ahead and aura over the top of this. Once again, I'm going to start to add in the petal. Now, on this one, if you want to, you can let your petal go on the outside, or you can keep it on the inside of your border in here. I think I'm going to let it dance on the outside a little bit. So I'm going to come in and come in. And you can see that that creates a really beautiful layering effect. I just love that. It's super, super fun. So go ahead and finish up your moon pie over here. We're going to add one more tangle, one more moon pie, and a couple of these yumemis, and then we're going to start to do color. So hang tight, we'll be right back. You finish up yours, and I'll see you in a minute. Remember to relax, breathe, and enjoy what you're doing. We're having fun here. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to finish up your moon pie over here. So I had the great fortune of meeting this next tangler. She was actually at my Zentangle training. Her name is Debbie New, and she has a really beautiful Zentangle that we're going to do next. And this is lunar flux. So lunar flux. And I love this tangle. I think it's beautiful. So what we're going to do is we're going to do just a little bit of a flux. So it looks like an upside down teardrop. And then I'm going to put a little teardrop on the top of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and gently aura this area right in here. Now you'll notice that I've paused in between. And then you can do any kind of stem that you want. So you can see that my stem is going to have a little bit of a wave to it. These are really fun to do in different configurations. So like I could come over here and do another one right off the side and then let my stem go underneath. So you can really play with these and have such fun with them. Now, I've seen a lot of people doing them where they've got a tri head on them, which is kind of fun. So I'm going to come up in this space right in here. So they go 1, 2, 3, and then they go ahead and add those, and then they go in an aura around the top, and then do their wavy stem. And that's super pretty and super fun. So it's a great tangle. I love this tangle, and I love Debbie. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. So definitely check her out, Debbie New. And she's just a great teacher and very prolific as well. So we're going to come over and start to bring in some of that lunar flux right over here on the side of where the cat is. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to come over really close to where the cat head is, and I'm going to do 2 flux that are kind of wavering off to the side. So you can see that I've got this one right here, and then I'm going to do another one just below it. Now I'm going to go ahead and just add their teeny tiny little teardrops right at the top, and then I'll go ahead and I'll start to aura. Now you'll notice that I'll fall off the page for this one. So once again, I love playing with the edge of things. And then I'm going to let this come down and wave in towards the cattail. So you're going to see me just take this in and bring it in towards the cattail. I'll take the other one right over here and bring it in towards the cattail as well. Coming over, I'm going to go ahead and aura this. So I'm just going to go in and aura. So here I am. I've come back in. Now I'm going to let this drop down, and then let this one drop down. Super fun. You can see that that just keeps giving a little bit of interest to where the tail is. It's almost like it's mimicking or auraing it, which is really fun. So now what I'm going to do is in that really neat little space that I've created right here above the tail, I'm going to go ahead and start to do another moon pie because I've finished up that lunar flux. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do an aura and an aura. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of circles or a couple of orbs. And then, oops, I can see that I got a little bit ahead of myself, so I can just drop down and do it again. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in my petals. So here comes another moon pie, which is really fun. So you can see that that kind of creates a really nice trifecta of moon pie. I always like to work in threes if I can. It just makes things more interesting. Now you remember that when I was talking about over here adding some more yumemi over here, so we're going to add a couple of yumemi coming up out of where this little area is. So I'm going to just drop in, and by the way, you can always pause me here if you are still working on your moon pie here. So I'm going to go ahead and just start by making a little bit of flux right in here. And then I'll let it go behind the cat, coming down and over. Really trying to get 5 here. It's a challenge for me. And then go ahead and create those little V's. And then I'm going to start to build off of that. And I could even mimic it down here if I wanted to. So I might just pretend to put in a little teeny tiny one right in here. Try to make them kiss if you can. I'm going to go ahead up here and do one that's kissing. And then once again, adding in those little pieces. See if I can get that one in there. And then of course, I can throw in some tipple. It's such a fun tangle. And I'm going to just let those tipples fall right down the side of those lunar flux. And it just creates this playful, fun feel to the tangle. It's almost like it's exploding these little tangles behind this really quiet cat. Now I'm going to add a little bit more tipple over here that looks like it's kind of flying off. And what I mean by that is I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a fairly large tipple right here. And then I'll come over here and do another. And then I'm going to start to let my tipple effervesce. And what I mean by that is I'm going to come in over here and let one fly away. I might come in here and let a few come in through here. Notice how the tipple are all different sizes. Maybe I'll do one more over here. And I could come down in here and add a couple in by where the yumemi is. So you can see that that gives it a little bit of a festive flair, almost like it's confetti. I'm going to go ahead and just close off this border. And you can see we've got a really fun composition here to play with, especially when we start doing color. Now we talked a little bit about puddling in here, and I do want to talk about that before we come back. So you'll want to be mindful of the yumemi in here, just so that if you are puddling around it that you leave a little bit of white. And here's a really great way to show you this. You can see that in my yumemi here, this is where my little band is. See how I've got this little interstice right here? I'm going to puddle in, but notice how I leave a little bit of white right next to it. See how that happened? You want to make sure that when you're puddling around these, you leave just a little sliver of white around the petal so that you don't lose the detailing of that. So you can see that I'm being very mindful of that. Even in here, you can see that I'm going to just add a splash of puddling, but not a ton. See how I left a little sliver of white in there? Same thing over here. I'm going to leave a little sliver of it. So just keeping that in mind when you're working around that tangle and adding your puddling in, you don't want to lose the edge of it. Now, If you've already gone in and got a little bit ahead, not to worry. That's what a white pen is for, so you can always add definition on the outside of your piece. So remember, there's no mistakes in Zentangle. There's just new opportunities to try different things. So I'm just going to go ahead and start puddling these little guys in. And you can see that I'm going to start to work around. See how they're right in here? I want to be really mindful of that. I'm just going to leave a little sliver of white, and then see how there's like that little hair there? It's just a tiny little bit. And that just makes it so that when we're working around it, we don't lose the piece. Super, super fun. And also when we start doing color, you won't even notice it anymore, but I'm just being extra careful. All right, so go ahead, do your puddling over there, and if you even want to do some puddling down in here or add some tipple down in here, you could, and that would be really fun. So I might even come down over here and add some larger tipple in here. And then I'm gonna puddle into some of those places and just work around. All right, so have some fun with that, and then when we come back, it's time for color. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so you know me, I get a little excited when I tangle, and sometimes I get a little ahead of myself and forget some things. Now, what I'm going to do in here is I still have my pen in my hand just for a moment. And what I want to do is I'm going to puddle just around my tipple that are on top of the moon pie here. Some nice Zentangle speak there for you. And you can see that I'm just puddling up the sides a little bit there just to give that a little bit of drama. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over to our spines here, and I'm going to do an internal aura on my spines. So you can see that I'm just getting in there and having some fun with it. I'm coming over here as well, so that way when we go in and do some color here, we're really going to be able to have some fun with it. Okay, so go ahead and just do a little bit of that puddling, and then when we come back, then we'll do our color. Sorry, I got us all excited. Okay, so we are going to focus on spines for a few minutes here. And I've got two colors in my hand. I've got the lavender, which is PC934 for those of you who have Prismacolor pencils at home. And then I also have in my hand the dahlia purple, which is PC1009. And if you have color pencils at home but they're not Prisma, don't worry about it. Just grab a lavender and a darker purple and we're going to just get on our way, okay? Remember, it's not about the colors that you're using, it's just about how you're using them. So if you don't have the same exact ones, don't worry about it. So I'm going to start with the lighter purple first, and I'm going to start by doing a very, very light shading right around where that first aura is. Now, most of you have heard me talk about this before, but I'll just reiterate it again. Each color pencil is 3 different colors. It's light, it's medium, and it's dark, right? Now, because this is such a translucent color, it's always nice to have a darker color nearby to help you with shading. So I'm starting with that light color first, and I'm going to just go ahead and do a little bit of light shading on either side of that little channel that I'm working on. And I'm going to get this nice and close so you can really see it. And you'll notice in the center I'm leaving white. That's because I want to create a really nice sheen in the center. So this is almost like we're doing the shading for a Zen button. If you haven't done a Zen button, this is very similar shading to that. Now I'm going to go up into the next couple of rungs and do the same thing. So you can see that I'm just coming in very, very light pressure on the pencil. And then the same thing right back in here. Now once I have that shading down and I still have that white in the center, I'm going to pick up that darker color. And I'm just going to dust the inside edge where the black line is with that color, just going ever so lightly. Now the reason for that is because this color has so much pigment in it, I don't have to press hard. Now I'm going to go where the other black line is and I'm going to go right underneath it. And you can see that that brings a three-dimensional quality to our shading here. Look at that, isn't that just lovely? Now, if you want to blur out your edge a little bit, you can come back in with that lavender and just do little circles right along where that darker color is, and you'll notice that it blurs out the edge a little bit. So we're just trying to keep it nice and light, but also have it be really soft. You can see how narrow that band is in there, and that's really what I'm looking for. And it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, a little bit of imperfection in that band is a good thing. So I'm going to continue that same way of shading in here. You'll see that I'm just going to go under right in here. And then I'll go over right in here. You notice that pencil is working in little circular motions, and I'm going with a really light tension. Can come in and just blend those in. Very, very light with that lavender. You don't have to press hard in order to blur out the edge. So you can see that when I zoom out, look at the difference between these two rungs and this rung. It's just amazing what doing a little bit of that darkness can do. It can give such a great three-dimensional feel. So go ahead and finish that third rung, and then when we come back, we're going to start to fill in our spines. All right, so we are going to start to build off of this a little bit, and you can see my spines over here. I'm going to start to fill in with two different colors. I've got two greens in my hand. You can see I've got a lighter green and a darker green. This is the Kelly green, one of my favorite greens in the Prismacolor set, and this is PC1006. This is a beautiful green, especially for this time of year. It really mimics what you see in nature. It's quite lovely. And then the next one is the olive green, and that's PC911. Love this green. You can tell I'm getting close to having to retire it. So I'm going to start with the lighter color first, and let's go ahead and zoom in on this. And I'm just going to start by dusting from the top down, getting right in there. And you'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of light at the bottom of the triangle here. I want it to kind of have a reflective quality to it. So I'm just going to get in there. I'm going to come over here and pop one of those in there, and even over here. And I just love the combination of working with purple and green together. They're just a beautiful combination. Now once you've had a chance to get all those in there, I'm going to come down from the top with that darker green. This is the olive green. And just start to get that beautiful, rich kind of ombre going. I would say I'm using a light to medium tension on that. I've come back with the Kelly green, and I'm just going to blur my edge a little bit. And isn't that just so pretty? They just look so nice together. I love those two colors. So go ahead and finish up your spines, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with the gemstone that we have right in here, right down at the bottom. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Have fun. So because this is a Zentangle inspired class that is inspired by Halloween, I am using some Halloween colors for our gemstone in here. Now what this is going to look like is I have a light kind of brownish color, almost an orange color, and then I've got a very nice kind of muted orange, and then a really nice deep kind of brown. Now the light color that I'm using in here is the goldenrod, and this is PC 1034. This is a beautiful color. I know a lot of the time in people's Prismacolor sets they veer away from the browns, but browns are gorgeous with really vivid colors, and I really want to encourage you to play with some of the browns in your Prismacolor set, especially those of you, and you know who I'm talking about, those of you who have the 150 set. Oh yeah, you've got a lot of great browns in there, so you should start playing with those. Now, I also happen to have one of my favorite oranges. This is the mineral orange, and this is PC 1033. And this is a great orange for pumpkin stuff. Now, I know that Prisma also has a pumpkin orange, but this mineral orange is also great for that. And then finally, one of my all-time favorite colors, the Tuscan Red. You guys have heard me talk about this many times. PC 937. This is just a gorgeous terracotta meets like a sienna red. It's just beautiful. So if you have this in your set, grab it. If you don't, grab your terracotta or your sienna, because both of those are great too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into this little area right in here, and I'm going to start by using the same technique that I just did over here. So I'm going to come down from the bottom all the way up towards the top, and you'll notice that when I get to the top, I'm going to start to leave the light up there. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Now you'll notice that I'm going to let that light just go off to the side a little bit. Coming in right there. So I've done a little bit of that nice goldenrod. Now I'm going to switch and start to bring in my mineral orange. I'm going to go about halfway up, and I am using a medium tension on that mineral orange. Okay. So it's very subtle and soft. And then finally, I'm going to take that really beautiful Tuscan Red, and I'm just going to dust the bottom of the gemstone with it. And I'm also going to go along the side of the cat. And you can already see that this is starting to look quite lovely. I'm going to go ahead and come back in with a little bit of that goldenrod and blur out my edge in here. You can see that I had a really hard edge in there, and I really wanted to soften it out. And you can see I'm just going to dip back a little bit and blend in that area as well. And look at the vividness that we're getting. It's really quite lovely. Now, if you have a line that just doesn't want to blur out, you can always come back in and just soften up the edge of it with that original color. And you can see that I'm doing that with some of the mineral orange, just getting it to soften a little bit. I do tend to weave a little bit back and forth. And that's going to give us a really beautiful gemstone. Look at that. Really quite lovely. So we're going to take that very same color, and we're going to start to carry it. We're going to take that right up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start again using the goldenrod. I'm going to dust in there. Once I've got it the way I want it, where the light is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of that mineral orange. Going about halfway through, nice tension on there. Light to medium tension, or pressure, however you like to put it. And then finally I'll come in with that Tuscan red and dust the edge of where the cat is. And then dust right underneath in here. Getting a really nice gemstone effect in there. Coming back in with that goldenrod and just blurring out the edges. Little circles. Really nice. So that when I zoom back out again, look at the dimension that that brings into it. Isn't that lovely? It just has such a great feeling. I'm going to do the same thing over here in my moon pies. So anywhere where you've got a small area, we're going to start to bring that in. And you can see why carrying that color across is going to let your eye kind of bounce across the piece, which is really nice. So go ahead and do these little guys in here just the way that you did those. And I think I'm even going to bring that color in right up here into my oh my goodness, my lunar flux in there. Okay, so have some fun, play, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, so I'm really liking the way this is starting to come out here. And what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to carry our color again. Do you remember the green that we were using over here? We're going to start to bring that over into our moon pies over here. Now, remember the technique that we used inside of our spines with the purple? We're going to use that same technique inside of our moon pie. So let's come over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and just very lightly start to dust both sides of that channel. And even if you have a really small space, you can get away with this. So I'm just going to do those two channels right in here, and you can see that it's not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect with the shading. In fact, a little imperfection is going to make this more interesting. Same thing up in here. See this moon pie, how he's a little wonky? It's okay. And then I'm going to come in with that green and just go a little bit heavier around the edge of the back and right along where the black line is. So you can see I'm going to do the same thing again, and this brings a really nice dimension into moon pie, which I love. Isn't that fantastic? Look at how that just makes that pop right off the page. I just love it. And then I'm going to come in and get this right over here and right over here. So you can see that that just really brings a whole level of sheen into the moon pie that wouldn't have been there otherwise. And it's just a fun way to play with it and just enjoy it. So go ahead and do those, and then when we come back, we'll start to work with the outer petals up in here, okay? Have fun, relax, and enjoy. So we're going to continue to carry color. I'm going to come back to that purple that we were using over here, and we're going to start to bring that into the petals that are up over on this side here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with that light lavender first. And I'm going to start by just adding a dusting of that lavender down at the bottom. So you can see that I'm not doing too heavily of a shade. I want to leave light up at the tips of the petals. And so when I do this, it's going to create a really nice sheen up at the top of the petal. So I'm just going in and adding these into the petals here. And then finally I'll come in and I'll add a little bit of that purple, the darker purple. This is the dahlia purple. Just bringing that in. And kind of moving my way through. And same thing over here. And you can see that that brings a really nice dimension to the petals themselves. But what it also does is when I take my hand away, you can see that as I zoom back out, your eye has a place to land on both sides of the piece. So it's not like you just have this random color over here that's not over here. It's just done in a much more quiet fashion. Okay, so go ahead and finish yours up, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work up and over into these other tangles that we have in here. So let's go ahead and focus on our lunar flux for a moment. I still have in my hand the same green that we were using over in our moon pies and over in the spines, and I'm going to bring that up into our lunar flux. And you're going to see that I'm going to start from the bottom of the stem and start to work my way up. And I'm going with a really light tension, and you'll notice that I'm going to leave a nice light area right in the middle of the stem. Just right in there. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger for you. And then I'm going to come up the sides of the head of the lunar flux, and you'll notice that I'm going to leave a little bit of white in here and in here, but up at the top I'm going to go right over the arc of the piece. Now I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that guy right there, bring a little sheen right into the center of that stem. Go around the arc. Leave a little light on the sides in here. And a little bit on the light in here. And you can see that that's starting to bring those pieces together and give them a little bit of concurrency. So I'm going to come in right in here as well with that olive green. Now this is that darker green, and I'm going to let that go about halfway up. And I'm going to let this one go halfway up. And then right in here, I'll give it a little bit of a darker dusting. And then right up in the middle at the top, I'll give it a darker dusting. So that when you look at this, it gives it a little bit of depth. So I'll do the same thing again, coming down at the bottom and right in here, over in here, a little bit off the top and a little bit on the sides, so that it gives it a really nice dimension, but it also ties it into the rest of the piece, which is really quite lovely. Okay, so go ahead and finish yours up, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with the yumemi. All right, so I'm going to introduce a new color into the piece here, and the colors that I've got in my hand are, I've got PC992, this is the light aqua, and then I also have in my hand the Copenhagen blue, which is PC906. And what I'm going to do with these two, and remember, if you don't have the Prismacolors, just grab a light blue and a dark blue and you'll be just fine. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to start with the light aqua and start to dust the yumemi in here. I'm just getting right in here. And then once I have that, from the inside, let's get this nice and big in here. From the inside, we're going to start to bring in a little bit of that darker color. Now I'm going very, very light with this color because I know that it has a ton of pigment and I don't need it to be too dark. So I'm just going very lightly. And you can see that that really just pulls you right into the center of the piece. Now I'm going to do just a little splash of darkness right in towards the center. And it just gives it such a nice look. I'm going to pick up that aqua again and blur out the edges on the outside. And look at how pretty that is. So I'm going to go around to all of the yumemis that I have and do the exact same thing. I'm even going to go into these guys and do the same. So you go ahead and do yours, I'll do mine, and then when we come back, we'll start to work right in our harari. Okay, so let's talk about harari here. I'm going to start working inside of the petals that we have. I'm going to also add in a new set of colors in here. So I have the blush pink and the magenta from the Prismacolor set. Blush pink is PC926. And then, or rather PC928, sorry about that. And then also I have in my hand the magenta, which is PC930. Both of these two as a combination are just one of the most elegant combinations of color. I just really enjoy them. So we're going to start with the lighter one first, and you're going to see me roll through the whole thing here. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, I'm going over my lines. It's fine. You can always clean up your lines later after we have had a chance to do our shading. So I'm just going through and doing nice circular motions with that particular pink that I have, that blush pink. I like this pink because it has a real earthy quality to it, and it just, to me, just is a very kind of classy kind of pink. It's not like a hot pink or an overtly pink kind of color. It's definitely got a really earthy tinge to it, which I love. I'm even going to go and get this petal down in here as well. Now, for the shading on this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that magenta that I had here, and I'm going to start to lightly dust, and I mean lightly because that magenta is just so powerful. And you'll see that I'm going to go around those petals that are curled in and just give it a little bit of a shadow. Now you want to make sure that your pencil is sharpened up for this so that you can really get in there and do some really nice detail work. You can see that I'm starting to press a little bit harder on that pencil there so that it's starting to glow. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to press a little bit harder just along the line at the bottom. Now I'm going to come in and start to add a little bit of that blush pink in here just to blur out my edge. And then I'm just going to stop before I get towards the top. On the sides of the piece in here, I'm going to come in with the magenta as well, just to give a little bit of detail in here and right over there. Now, once I've had a chance to do that, I'm going to pick up a yellow color, and it's that goldenrod that we used over here, and I'm just going to dust a little bit above that edge in here. And I just love when flowers have that kind of unexpected touch of color right in there, and so I'm just doing a blush of that, and look at how pretty that was. So let's do that again one more time together, and then I'll let you go off and do your own thing. So we filled in the whole piece here with that blush pink, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab the magenta here, and I'm going to just dust the bottom. I'm going to start to come up around the sides of those petals that are curled in. You'll notice that I'm going to start to push a little bit harder and get a little bit more of a glow off of the petal. And then I'm going to push a little bit harder at the bottom. I'll go up the sides a little bit. Give that a nice little glow in there. And then I'm going to pick up the goldenrod in here, and I'm just going to do a little dusting. Now I think I'm going to bring in some of that pink first, just to soften the edges of those colors. You can see that I'm blurring out the edges. Then I'm going to pick up that goldenrod and just do that unexpected little bit of color. I just think it's magic. Really, so pretty. You can even dust a little bit on the edges of your piece over here if you want to. So go ahead and do these two on your own, have fun with them, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with the background. Okay, so we are going to start to work with that background. And what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to pick up the Copenhagen blue. This is the dark blue that was inside of our yumemi here. And we're going to start by working with the background. Now, you'll notice that I dropped some tipples down in between my harari in here. So if you want to drop some tipples down there, you're more than welcome to do that. And I floated a couple of extra ones. I got a little, I had to play a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in that Copenhagen blue. This is the darker blue that I'm working with. I wanted it to be a little bit more moody than the first one that I did. So I'm just going to go in and start to bring in that soft, soft Copenhagen blue. I'm going very, very lightly with this. It has a very navy-like tone. I'm going to start to work around his head in here. And see, I'm just working in really nice circular motion. You know, when you work in circular motion, you get a really beautiful mist of color versus working in scratch. Like a lot of people do this, and that tends to get a really scratchy background. I'm also hardly touching the page with my pencil, so I really want you to keep that in mind as you're working, that when you're doing a background piece like this and you have a lot of little minutiae to work around, you want to just keep it very, very light on your pencil before you do your shading. So you can see that I'm just being very mindful and just letting that pop around. And here and over here. Normally I talk about using the side of the pencil for this, but because there's so much that we're working with here, it really does help to work with the tip of the pencil on this one. We're working in such narrow spots that the technique is just a little bit different today. So once I've had a chance to get all the way through the background in here, I'm going to start to work around the border. And what that's going to do is it's going to start to frame in the piece and really give your eye a place to land. And I learned this technique from a mixed media teacher that I love. Her name is Lori Marie Jenkins, and she's wonderful at framing her pieces with a nice rich black border. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it with the same color. I'm just going to push a little harder. So you're going to see me start to push on that color a little bit and start to frame in that border. And I think it just gives it a really nice kind of moodiness, a little bit of drama. I love that Copenhagen blue on its own. You know, it's lovely with the turquoise, but on its own it can be such a really moody color. It can really anchor a piece and calm it right down. So you can see I'm just working my way through and just really trying to anchor the border. You'll see me start to push a little bit harder here, right along the outside edge. And just bringing this in, bringing a little bit of glow around the cat. You can see that it really trying to get a little bit of a glow going around his head. You can see that I'm resisting working very close to him or her. And then if you want to, you can pick up your white pencil. This is the PC 938 here. And this is really wonderful for blending. So if you want to go ahead and start to do a little bit of blurring out of your edges, it really gives it a nice kind of moody feel on that white tile. Now you'll notice that I'm being very, very careful and working my way from the light into the dark instead of the other way around, because you can really pull the dark down into the light of the background. And I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see that. So you can see that I'm just starting to work my way through into the light, and just being very cautious to leave some of that light in there. And you'll also notice that as you work with this throughout, it softens the color. So working with that white is such a fun pencil to work with. You'll notice that I'll stop before I get close to the cat, just to leave some of that glow in there, because I don't want it all blended out. I do want to have some moodiness in there. So you can see that when I zoom out, look at how beautiful that is. It just ties the whole piece together and gives it a quietness that, you know, before there was a lot of chaos in that background, and now it's just kind of a party back there. So go ahead and finish up your background, and when we come back, we're going to start to work with tipple. Okay. So some of you who have taken class with me before know that I like to do a technique with tipple called gumballing out. And that I really want you to see in your mind's eye, if you looked at a gumball machine and it had all the different colors in it, that that's basically what we're going to be doing here. Now, I am going to do it in a little bit more of a subtle fashion. I'm going to be doing it with 2 different colors, but you could go hog wild with it and do it with many, many different colors. So in my hands here, I have the golden rod, which is the same light color that we used in here, and then I also have the Tuscan red, which is also the darker color that we used in there. But I also happen to have in my hand one of my favorite secret weapons. This is PC 1065. This is great if you don't like working in graphite. Graphite has a tendency to smear and smudge, and this pencil is a great mimic for graphite. Now, if you don't have this exact gray, don't worry about it. Just grab the gray that's in your set. But if you can, go out and get yourself this pencil. This is a really nice pencil to have if you are going to do lots of gray work. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about where I'm going to do my gumballing, okay? So I'm going to start with the gray first. And any place where I know that I'm going to get close to that kind of orange or yellow, I'm going to put gray in there. So this top little gumball in here, you'll notice that these guys are really squished in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dust one side of the little gumball and then leave it alone. So up in here, I'm going to do the same thing because I know that I'm nice and close to that same color. Anytime I know that I'm close to it, I'm just going to not use it again. So same thing down in here and over here, even up in here. So I'm just looking for places where I know that I'm close to it. Now, once I've had an opportunity to work around those, I'm going to start to bring in some of the goldenrod. So I could pick up some goldenrod right in here and over here. So there's a real randomness about it. I don't want it to look like I'm doing every other one. I really want it to feel as random as possible. I'm going to pick up some of that terracotta and just dust the edges. So I'm hoping that that makes sense to you, that you're really keeping it as random as possible. And look at what happens when you do that. It's just such an interesting play of the tipple. So I'm just going to start to work my way through, decide where I'm going to do gray, where I'm going to do the goldenrod, and just play it all the way through. I'm going to come in through here and do some of it. And then even down in here, I'll come in and I'll start to interchange them. So really go ahead and have some fun with these. So you can see that I'm right over here. I don't want to have goldenrod next to goldenrod, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of gray in there just to keep it interesting, so that when I zoom out, it's going to be really fun. It's going to be different colors and really playful. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we'll start to finish up. All right, so let's talk about moon pie for a second here. You can see that I came in right at the bottom of these tipple in here and just shaded a little bit of gray right at the bottom of those. And the same thing right down in here, just a little bit of shading right in the bottom of those. Now I could come back in with my my black pen and start to fill in those interstices, but I'm not going to do that for this class, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Now, I also want to talk about the tail of the cat. So let's talk about that. We're going to come up with the gray, and we're going to go about halfway up with the tail in the gray. And then I'm going to start to shade right along the edge of the curve, but you'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of white down in here and a little bit of white in here. I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of gray right on the curve here. And then right over here, I'm going to add a little bit of gray as well, just to give a little sheen on that tail. Just kind of gives it something interesting to look at. Now we are going to pick back up our puddling pens here, or rather our tangle pens. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add in a little bit of detailing right around my gems. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and just leave a little bit of a line there. So you're going to see that there's a little bit of white next to the cat. And then I'm going to go ahead and start to add a little bit of puddling right around the gem. And you can see that that makes it very electric. Still leaving just a hair around that cat there. Same thing over here, so I'm just going to come in and start to bring in that black. Now up on the top of these in here, I think I'm going to do some slatting, so just a little bit of a line. And then I'll do the same thing in here, so I'm just going to come in and puddle. And then a little bit of slatting. And you can see that that brings a really nice definition in there. Same thing here. And then a little bit of slatting. So that when I zoom out, it's really going to give that a lot of definition and play off the cat. Now here on this guy, I need to be mindful of where the cat is, so you can see that I just made that line, and then I'm going to go ahead and puddle away. And you can see that that just leaves enough of that interest in there. Which is really, really fun. Just loving that. Super, super fun. All right, so take your time and finish those up, and then when we come back, we're going to work a little bit up and over in this area. So I'm going to come right up in here. I had to put a little bit of my notes right next to this because my camera is acting a little bit funny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right into these little dots that are up at the top, and I'm just going to add a little bit of black right into those as well. I'm really liking the way this is turning out. Now, for those of you who happen to have a white pen handy, these are great to have for all kinds of highlighting and adding embellishments to a piece. I happen to have my Signo Uniball pen here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into these really fun pieces that we just did with the black, and I'm going to add a little white dot into those as well. So you're going to see me come in, and hopefully this is going to show up on the camera. I'm just going to add some dotting into there just to do some embellishment and make it a little bit different than the cat, because we want to try to keep it a little bit different. Now, if you don't have that, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's just a small thing that you can do. But I always recommend people try these white pens. They're so fun and really can embellish a piece quite nicely. Another thing that you can do with the piece is you can add just a little bit of a highlight down at the bottom of your gemstone. You're going to see me put in a little bit of a white circle right in there, and it just gives it a little bit of a gleam or a sheen, which is really quite nice. And I'll even come up over into the lunar flux and do that as well. If you want to go ahead and add it into your tipple, it is a lot of tipple to work with, so I'm not sure that I would do it with this piece, but it is really fun. All right, so we have come to the end of class here. I've gone and put my chop in that little corner over there just to signify that I'm done with the piece here. I hope you enjoyed the class. If you did, please give us a thumbs up or leave us a nice review. Even better, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page here. And if you'd really like to join our community on Facebook is the Tangled Yogi Art Community page. We have a wonderful group of people that share their work and we all learn from each other. It's very supportive and wonderful. You just have to answer the questions and you're into the page, which is great. If you're interested in the tiles that I worked with for the class, today I worked with the Genesis tile. That's over at tangledyogi.com. You can check it out in the shop. This is the white tile. And I also did the class on a tan tile as well because I'm always trying to challenge myself. And this is the rustic tile. And this is over at tangledyogi.com as well. So if you want to check those out, you are welcome to do so. I thank you guys for joining me for the Carnival Cat, and I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. I'll see you around very soon. Bye for now.